Pitt is it in 2021 in the ACC as the Pitt Panthers do complete their magical season in the ACC, winning the Atlantic Coast Conference, winning the ACC Championship over Wake Forest, 45-21 your score, and the Pitt Panthers do claim that ACC crown their first ever ACC Championship. This is your Pitt postgame show, also your ACC Championship Game postgame show. The Panthers win it 45-21. All our postgame coverage on our flagship over there at Pittsburgh Sports Now, the game recap, video reaction on Narduzzi, Pickett and Company here at Pittsburgh Sports Live, and this show right here as well to commemorate this ACC Championship for the Pitt Panthers. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and to have this conversation, I will be joined by a friend and colleague, KDKA's James Santelli, and as you can see, resident Pitt fan as well. We might even actually get to touch on the Pitt volleyball team's victory, which he also attended. We will get him some time to bring that up here at the end of the program as they move on. Another Sweet 16 for the volleyball team, which continues for the athletic program, and a solid night for Pitt athletics. It's been a while since one of these nights has occurred for Pitt athletics. But James, Pitt wins this. They win the ACC. I don't think anyone kind of predicted this before the season. Obviously, there's been individual accolades for Narduzzi, Mark Whipple, even Pickett, all silencing doubters, all silencing critics, all throughout the year. But then this culminates in the ACC Championship, which is really what the final goal was at the end of the year. Pitt wins this in kind of relatively easy fashion after the game started off with both teams trading touchdowns. Wake had a lead at one point. There were people that I saw already seeming like, oh, maybe Pitt met their match offensively, and if Wake could be the team that would create some turnovers, it would then be a Wake Forest victory as they had a special year in their own right. But then something clicked. Pitt's defense stepped up. Kenny Pickett did outplay Sam Hartman, and then Hartman imploded at the end of the game, throwing those costly interceptions, including the pick sixes, and Pitt ended up with a victory. Is this game how you thought this game would unfold? Was there any surprises to this game for you, and what kind of led Pitt to this ACC championship win for you?
Oh, it was absolutely not what I expected. You said few predicted Pitt winning the ACC. Absolutely true.
Right.
Nobody predicted a Pitt Wake Forest ACC final. Absolutely true.
Right.
And nobody predicted that Pitt would basically coast once it came to the fourth quarter. Nobody saw that coming, but it was the defense stepping up in a huge way that we had not seen. We had seen the front seven getting sacks, the quarterback, and they did that tonight. I mean, they got at least 5 sacks, Hartman there, but then just some, you call it boneheaded decision-making from Hartman on those last 2 picks. I genuinely don't know what he was thinking, but Pitt's secondary was in the right place. Get the 1 pick, get the pick 6, and that salted it away. And it was the rare feeling as a Pitt football fan that you could just genuinely enjoy the last 7 or 8 minutes or so and not be worried that the bottom was going to drop out from under you, because there was no bottom to drop. They had won it. You can start the celebration. I mean, they could have dumped the Gatorade on Narduzzi with 6 or 7 minutes left. They waited, probably rightly so.
Right. No, absolutely. It almost seemed like we've called games before. The broadcast was trying to kind of kill time. They're basically hosting a talk show there in the final 8.5 minutes because, it felt like the vibe was over. Hartman's head is down. It really did feel like it was
leaving. It was all
fans were leaving.
The Pitt fans left there in the stadium in Charlotte. Such an unusual feeling that I will probably spend the rest of this YouTube time just trying to put it into words, because it is so unusual as a Pitt football fan to have this moment. So I'm gonna use this time to come to grips with it, I suppose.
I think one nice thing though for Pitt and for Pitt fans and even for the program, the way they won this game. Kenny Pickett had his moments. We will talk about the 58-yard touchdown run that occurred early on in this game, certainly in a moment here. And Kenny Pickett's been that Heisman candidate all season. I think this game will cement him being a Heisman finalist for sure, regardless of what the fan vote says. By the way, the fan vote doesn't count for people who are obsessing with the fan vote.
That is correct. Yeah,
but he will get there anyway.
But it counts, Mike. It counts for one vote out of whatever it is, 980.
Hey, well, this is one of those years that it could actually be close if you're trying to bump off an Alabama quarterback. So, hey,
one vote.
Maybe you need that. But nonetheless, Pitt's defense was able to step up to get them this victory. And obviously, it's pretty clear the defense let this team down in the losses. So it's nice for the defense to step up in this game. And the running game even stepped up, whether it be Pickett, but also Davis, also Akanda. Like, it was the whole group stepping up for the team. And that kind of makes this a little bit of a different victory, I would imagine, for Pitt fans as well, that this was a full-on group. Without the defense stepping up at the end of the year and without the running game emerging itself really halfway through this season towards the end, I don't know if Pitt's here despite what Kenny Pickett's doing.
And let that be a credit to Pat Narduzzi,
right?
As it should. That is the kind of football that Pitt was expecting when he was hired. And it was not too long ago, following that Western Michigan loss, that people were calling, not incorrectly so, for Pat Narduzzi to no longer be the football coach.
Yeah, some of us at this network, we did whole shows on it. Yeah.
And frankly, they were wrong. And Narduzzi and this football team proved them wrong. Obviously, it's not all on the head coach. This was an incredibly talented, experienced football team, led by one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and they deserve all the accolades that are coming to them. But Pat Narduzzi does as well. I mean, there's a reason that they were able to put everything together in the second half like they did tonight. They came out still a little, struggling in the early goings of the third quarter, but then put together a nice drive, got everything together defensively. And I mentioned Hartman making boneheaded plays as the Wake Forest quarterback, but not just his decisions. They got a lot of pressure on him, forced him into some bad calls on the last two interceptions, and that was what let them just coast the rest of the way. This is a Pat Narduzzi victory as much as any can be, because that defense got it done when the moment counted.
Yeah, and this season has to be sweet for Pat Narduzzi, honestly. I mean, he's taken his share of criticism. He's kind of had a war with Pittsburgh media over the years. It's his first 9-win season. It becomes a 10-win season. It's now become an 11-win season. Could even become more than that with the bowl game coming up. Obviously, the best year he's had at Pitt, and it's taken a while to get there. Pitt had been in the ACC Championship game a few years ago, got boat raced by Clemson, but that was a little different feeling. That was a team that won a down division, and they got there, and they deserved to be there, but nobody bet on Pitt. I mean, the Vegas spread with 20-plus point favorite for Clemson in that game, and nobody was having any individual type of great seasons either. This year, if it's not for those two hiccup losses, Pitt actually right now, with the way things unfolded, could be knocking on the door of the college football playoff, if not very safely securing themselves there. They don't get that, but still, to end up with an ACC championship, to beat a 10-win team, to be a 10-win team in the regular season, this team played for Pat Narduzzi. I mean, many other teams, many other players, if they didn't like their coach and you have the Western Michigan loss, they could have just laid down and let this season unfold with him on the hot seat or who knows what, and they kept playing for him. They then got over the Miami loss, and to win this way, it was a full team effort, and also nice for him with the defense stepping up with those turnovers, because he is a defensive-minded guy. And I'm sure that it still probably sticks in him that the defense was the issue for that early season loss. So the defense fixed itself. It got better. And if it did not, Pitt would not be in this spot. James Santelli of KDKA joining me here on our Pitt post-game show, our ACC Championship post-game show here. Pitt wins at 45-21 over Wake Forest to win the ACC Championship. We do have some chatters joining along here, and it's mostly just Pitt fans celebrating. We don't have much of a debate right now as we normally have in these chats. We won.
Let me take this opportunity.
There you go.
Let me take this opportunity to crack open the Dancing Gnome beer.
Okay.
Enjoying here.
I think that's fitting, probably.
I don't know if they're a sponsor of Pittsburgh Sports Live or not.
They are not, but we can grab them.
Cheers to the local brew and to the commenters. I mean, but that's what this is. This is a night for Pitt fans to celebrate, which frankly does not come up too often. And I put the question out there on Twitter, combining the volleyball victory and the football ACC championship. This is the best night for Pitt athletics since, and I'm not trying to spike the football on you as a WVU grad, but most people are saying since 13-9, since the 2007 backyard brawl.
Right.
And I think that's right. I don't think there has been a better night, combine the ACC championship and Pitt volleyball getting off the schneid at the Pete, getting to the Sweet 16. That's not just my own bias as a Pitt volleyball fan talking. This is truly the best night for the athletic department since 2007. And that's something to celebrate. You've got to.
And this is more reason to celebrate. As great as that was for Pitt to do that to a rival, that was a year Pitt didn't even make a bowl game. I mean, this is a year where Pitt's winning a championship. There should be more celebration to win the ACC, to win a major conference over just beating a rival. This is for sure a bigger deal to the Pitt program. This is something to actually warrant if you're going to take it to the streets versus just securing, what was it, the 5th win of the year at that point?
It was. They were 5-6. I think you're right regarding the program and the athletic department. For the fans, September 1st, 2007 was bigger. I mean, I'm not going to just relive my whole life and torture you from my reaction from that night, but that was such a what on earth is happening. And this night, at least toward the end of the football game, was kind of in that same vein of like, in a delightful way, what on earth is happening? How are we watching a Pitt football team just
especially when there's an implosion and it's not Pitt. The implosion was Wake Forest. The implosion's Wake Forest quarterback. I mean, the recipe for Pitt to win this game was to have a little better defensive effort, have the defense step up, and have the quarterback outplay the opposing great quarterback. And it happened in spades. And it was really partly, again, Pitt gets all the credit, but partly because Wake Forest just showed up at halftime and then just totally imploded themselves. And it was led by their star quarterback in Hartman, and Pitt was in the right spot. We do actually have some comments here that are throwing the counterpoint of since Dan Marino hit John Brown in the end zone. So that even takes it way further back. So yeah, I mean, if you're not going to go 2007, which is just basically beating a rival to hurt themselves and not in any way help you yourself really, then you would have to go back then. That would be what you'd have to do.
There was somebody that said that on Twitter as well. They said 1981.
Right.
And yeah, I can see it. It as an overall athletic department defining evening. I will let my Pitt volleyball bias show and say, getting over the hump, beating a Penn State.
Yeah, that's part of it too, even though maybe not everyone focused in on it.
If people do not know the history, Pitt lost to Penn State in the second round of the NCAA tournament twice there in Penn State. Right. For the first time, they were able to host Penn State at the Pete and get off the schneid in 2 ways, beating Penn State, and 2, winning at the Pete, a place where they had lost in the second round twice in a row, once against Michigan on the same night as the ACC Championship game against Clemson for football, and then again to Jordan Thompson, Olympic gold medalist in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
That was hanging heavy over the program. I mean, you could tell that, like, in the air at the Pete, it's kind of like, is this going to happen again? Are we going to have just this, awful second round, not getting over the hump feeling? And when, being there in the building, watching that team in what was a roller coaster game, it was a very close match in all 4 sets, watching them get off the schneid, get the monkey off their back, actually be able to celebrate in the Pete, being able to win and go to the regionals, that was such a just like sigh of relief for the entire program. And you could say for the football program, this is a sigh of relief too. Like, yeah, you have finally done it. You have finally won the ACC. You're getting to a New Year's Six bowl game for the first time since before there was a New Year's Six, before you're, going back to the BCS with the Fiesta Bowl. And that's just a like, whew, okay. Like, didn't have the normal like Pitt circumstance and the Pitt result that is often expected.
And as somebody who's been covering this team, it felt like going into this game, Pitt should win this game. Even if Hartman didn't implode, these are similar teams, similar stories. Pitt was better. Pitt's been the better team all year. They have the better individual players. You could argue even more experience with Pat Narduzzi as a head coach. all of the cards said, and everyone out there was saying that Pitt should win this game. Vegas was saying Pitt was going to win this game. Now, Vegas didn't predict Pitt to just beat him down. Vegas wasn't predicting Hartman to implode himself. I don't think anyone thought that on either side. But most people, even honestly, a guy who covered Wake Forest at a previous show, he picked Pitt to win this game. So most people were picking Pitt to win this game. But I would still imagine, obviously, as you're detailing there, Pitt fans still had to endure that until it happened. You're not going to let that be enough of just the predictions and getting the 10 wins in the regular season, because you know what you would hear if Pitt lost this game with being a favorite. There would absolutely be Pitt fans that would go into an offseason and say, well, yeah, 10 wins, but Western Michigan, Wake Forest, and Miami, those are three teams we should have beat. We didn't beat them. That's why we didn't get New Year's Six. So now you don't have to have that, at least. Like, you're going to get
it would have left. Yeah, it would have left a bad taste in your mouth to lose that game, go to the Gator Bowl instead of the Peach Bowl. And one thing I should note defensively, which I didn't before, was there was at least 7 drives in a row, I think, where Wake Forest either intercepted, punted. I think it ended up being eight or 9 drives in a row once it got through that second half, and the 2 Hartman interceptions. I mean, that's frankly incredible from a Pitt defense that certainly did not look that way against Virginia.
Yeah, halftime adjustments or what? I don't know, because Wake Forest was rolling in the first half as well. It was a slower game. I would imagine for fans of neither team, it was less entertaining in the second half. But yeah, Pitt's defense stepped up. There's no way else to say it. And if Pitt's defense didn't step up this year, Pitt would not be the ACC champion as they are. We have a lot more Kenny Pickett for Heisman. Kenny Pickett should actually win the Heisman, even though he won't win it. That's going to be a whole different, interesting conversation, because honestly, he's going to be a finalist. That's probably max for him. If you really look at the numbers, the only difference is 2 touchdowns between 2 quarterbacks, between him and the Bama quarterback. Them beating Georgia probably lost him the Heisman. He probably would have lost it anyway, but the fact that Bama is going to get in the playoff, they win the SEC, that's going to bump them. And they were going to look to find a bump anyway. Like, it was going to not be Pickett's. I would right now feel like Pickett probably is runner-up. I would think that's possible based on the others not doing as much as him, even team-wise. Who knows? I don't think winning it's a possibility, but you could actually make a legitimate case. There could be some Fit fans that could carry that gripe going forward, even though it probably won't happen. I know the Larry Fitz gripe still is going on right now, even from 15 plus years ago. Yeah, and you mentioned so that's at least going to atone from itself, as well as Pitt winning a legit conference championship, which atones for itself. Last time Pitt was in this situation with a New Year's Six BCS Bowl conference title, you mentioned Fiesta Bowl 2004 against Utah. That was winning a down Big East, and that was before West Virginia got rolling.
For that season, like
it wasn't the same as this, right? Like, that was a year, if you recall the way the rules were. If you recall the way the rules were, you automatically got in the BCS by winning a major conference, what they deemed as a major conference. It didn't matter whether 8-4, 7-5, whatever the record may be. You got in a BCS. There were teams that, if you recall, that same year, I believe Auburn went undefeated in the SEC and didn't get a chance to play for the national title. So if they were in the Big East, I'm going to think might have beat Pitt. You don't know. So you got in based.
You don't know that.
You got in based on the rules of the time, and that was right before Pat White, Steve Slayton, and West Virginia got rolling, where they clipped off Big East titles. So that was a perfect time for Pitt to get one. And then once West Virginia got going, then conference realignment, etc. Pitt never really contended for another conference title until maybe you could argue the ACC Championship game against Clemson, but then they got beat down in that game.
You had the, and I hate to bring it
in
up,
09, you could maybe bring that up.
Yeah, the Marty Gilliard, all of that. I mean, I was there for that. I hate to bring back those memories. Although it's supposed to be a celebration for the evening.
09, and that's another one of those years that Doran Dickerson, a friend and colleague of mine, he always brings up. There was a 10-win Pitt season, even though it included a bowl game. So in the mix there.
Let's at least talk a little bit about this Heisman case. As much as I would love to,
can you make a case for Pickett?
Homer? Yeah, and say yes, he should be the Heisman winner.
Right.
My friend Jim Rosati, Northside Notch, on Twitter pointed out that Pickett put up similar numbers to the year Lamar Jackson put up numbers and won the Heisman. It's just It's not going to happen. Bryce Young was already one of the Heisman favorites.
Yeah.
He's going to win the Heisman now. But here's the thing. Looking back a week or two ago, it was uncertain if Kenny would go to New York at all. There were enough strong candidates to say, you know what, if there's, if you got to leave somebody out, maybe it ends up being
It took
Kenny,
Ohio State losing. Right. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, the whole, really for the athletic department and for the fans, the purpose was to get Kenny to New York. Yeah, you would love to see him win the Heisman. Of course you would love to see him win the Heisman. That would be fantastic. That would be marvelous. Not going to happen. But with this tonight, with the performance that he had, with winning the ACC championship, he's going to get that invite to New York. He's going to be able to be on that stage, and he deserves it. This would not be a 10 and now 11 win team without Kenny Pickett. It just wouldn't be.
No way. No. And Kenny Pickett, forget the Heisman. He's made himself a bag this year too by coming back.
Oh my, yeah.
He's going to be a first round pick, if not a top 15 pick. Obviously, it's been coming up roses for Kenny Pickett, and I don't mean the Rose Bowl, but it's going to be a major bowl game. And yeah, it won't be the Heisman, it won't be the playoff.
They're coming up peaches for Kenny Pickett.
Peach pie is better than if rose pie would exist. So yes, he's coming up peaches for Kenny Pickett, likely a peach bowl scenario for Pitt. Hey, the Peach Bowl commissioner was hanging out in Pittsburgh a month ago, so I think that's a pretty safe bet at this point now. Pitt again wins the ACC championship. If somehow you're living under a rock and you're just figuring it out, Pitt does beat Wake Forest 45-21. James Santelli of KDKA joining me here as we are commemorating this Pitt season, a little bit of Pitt past and celebrating Pitt's ACC championship this year. I do want to ask you though, because this is going to be a question that will be discussed on talk shows, and this was discussed on Twitter a little bit tonight. Now, to make this clear, and I'm happy about this as well, I'm sure you are, so we don't have to hear about this moving forward. It did not impact this game. Pitt had this game in hand. Hartman then imploded himself. Pitt won this game handily. Where I'm going, though, is Kenny Pickett's fake slide, which then allowed him to get in the end zone. For a while, that was deciding this game. Pitt had a field goal lead for a significant portion of this game. Even when Wake was imploding themselves, Pitt was still hanging on by just a field goal. And then even when it got to 10 off another Hartman pick, you could still make the argument that it impacted the game. Pitt was able to get another one, so it didn't have to be discussed. But just in general, what are your thoughts on if there needs to be a rule change? Because my issue with the play, and it's a heads up, smart veteran play by Pickett, but it kind of screws the defender that if you're faking a slide and the defender goes at you, they're going to get called for a flag. The flag's going to take you probably to the 1 yard line or close to the goal line anyway, if not a targeting call, depending on where they hit you, which then kicks you out of the game altogether. If they let you up and basically say, okay, we're going to back off because you're sliding, and then you fake it and run, they're creating tons of space if they don't want the flag. So it basically is a lose-lose situation for the defender. It's not like a running back or receiver faking it. A quarterback's going to get the deference from the refs. A fake slide ends up being points for Pitt. Do you think that needs a rule change, though, that a quarterback cannot fake a slide? And if your knee, I don't know how you would call this. I guess if you intend to slide, then you have to slide. But that would discuss a lot in the broadcast, and I do feel like it put the defender in a no-win situation.
But before I answer, I do want to point out that the @Pittsburgh Twitter account, which is the official City of Pittsburgh Mayor's Office Twitter account, has changed their name in a very James Santelli fashion to City of Pickettsburg, which I think is fantastic.
That is the James Santelli fashion. Yes, that is at James Santelli. You can see what he's doing right now in the book.
To change the display name, yeah.
Yes.
So I like to think I inspired that. I think you hit on the exact right point, which is how would you even call it? Well, first of all, what would the penalty be called? Would it be unsportsmanlike conduct or illegal use of the juke? I don't know what you would call that. And then it kind of evolved into tuck rule kind of territory, which is what would you then define as faking a slide, like kind of faking a pump fake or what have you, what qualifies as that? So to Kenny Pickett's credit, of everything that he has done this year, and he has done quite a bit, revived a kind of what had been a moribund program, got himself from a very solid starting quarterback to the Heisman stage in New York in a New Year's Six bowl game. We may now have the Kenny Pickett rule, which would define whether or not you can fake slide, how you can go down or not go down and then keep going. To his credit, there is no rule that exists right now.
No, it counts. It's legit.
He found the perfect opportunity and not have thought of it. He clearly thought, and he knew the perfect time to use it because he had space as well. It's not like he was going to fake it and then immediately get back. Like, he was in open space and had the opportunity to like do the move, split out, and then go the distance. I only saw it because other people who were in the volleyball crowd like started freaking out that Kenny Pickett ran 60 yards. I'm not going to give you a good answer to this because I really don't know.
I think that is the problem. I don't know how you would call it, but I mean, I do think they called a solid game, but they were irate on the broadcast. And you heard comments of they're going to bring this up in the offseason in the competition committee. But I think the issue would be, and I do think there needs to be something in place. I think the problem, James, is, and this is the NFL and college, they've made the game so difficult for defenders. And it's not excusing them on certain hits because there's somewhere that egregious, but they made it so difficult that if you're going to play smart defense, you have to literally change your entire mentality from what it would even have been a decade ago, that the quarterback gets so much deference that, let's be honest, and I'm just going to give Kenny Pickett the benefit of the doubt here because there are some that have argued with me that they actually believe he was legitimately planning to slide and then saw the defense backing off and then change course mid-slide, which would be crazy athletic maneuvering, by the way. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and claim that he is a smart enough quarterback, a veteran quarterback that thought, okay, a fake slide could work here. If that's the case, great, but he's taking advantage of the fact that he knows the rules benefit him against those defenders. So we've now got to a point where that's the case. I don't know how you would call it though, because I don't know what you would do. I don't know. You know that if they end up putting a rule in place, there's going to be people then screaming, saying, well, how can you determine that he was trying to slide? You're just guessing. We can't read the quarterback's mind on whether they're going to slide or not. And what you can say then is, well, you did enough to intend the slide. Now you must slide. Like, that doesn't work. but in your middle of the field, it's not like you're at the end zone. But I feel like, again, the problem is it was a smart play that was lose-lose for the defense. I actually think if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm a defensive coach, the way to stop that, James, and I'm not going to advocate, I guess, for violence here, but is to rock a quarterback. The way to stop it is to rock a quarterback, because the point is you're likely giving up the points anyway. If I'm going to give up the touchdown and I have a lose-lose situation, I'm going to rock them and then go, okay, you're on the 1 yard line. Somebody will run it in, but you're not going to do that again because you don't want to get rocked again. So you got 7, but you're not going to be doing any more fake slides. Now you're going to see more fake slides. So I think that is the way to stop it. Somebody got to rock a quarterback if they're going to try to fake slide. And he's more mobile than others, but
I think you need to add that to your Twitter bio. Like, I'm not going to advocate for violence as a quote. Just
okay.
There.
Twitter might ban me though. I feel like they're a little strict these days. I don't know if I would be able to last with that one. Yeah.
I do agree with your larger point though, which it's hard out there for a linebacker, defensive player.
Right.
We saw that in the Pitt UVA game where 2 Pitt players got ejected for targeting calls that by the letter of the targeting rule, yes, you know, you can't hit the way you were hitting and stay in the game. Yes, you by the letter of the law should be ejected, but by the spirit of it, they should not. I mean, they were not like going head hunting. They were very just situational, like head meeting head kind of moments. And that, I mean, it ultimately, yes, we're doing the right thing. The guiding light is to avoid concussions, avoid some of the worst excesses of head injuries and CTE. Overall, I mean, these are still amateurs playing. Like, you know, rules or NIL rules notwithstanding, like, can make some money, but like you got to protect these still young people. I mean, you could be 18 years old playing college football and get yourself ruined for the rest of your life. But, you do have to put the line somewhere. And more over recent years, the line has been moved in opposition of defensive players. And so, my heart does go out to guys that are just trying to play good defense, that are just trying to make the stop, that are just trying to, tackle the Heisman candidate quarterback in the first.
And there's three defenders in the video, so it's hard for me to believe that all three of them didn't have a play on Pickett. Either they thought he was really going to slide, or I don't know if they actually did have something go through their mind of saying, if I hit him when he attempts a slide, I'm out of this game. It's going to be targeted. Yeah. So, do I want to play the rest of the game, or do I want to give up that touchdown? You're really screwed. That is the situation. And it's a 2-second decision.
That probably played into Pickett's mindset as well.
I'm sure.
He probably thought, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it in the first quarter, where I know that defensive guys are a little more guarded.
Right. If it's the fourth, I get kicked out. I got you. Right. Yeah.
Who cares if I get ejected for targeting at that point? But first quarter, you lose the ball, as a defensive player have to go out there with kind of a guarded mindset. And ultimately, as a North Star, protecting the heads of young men between the ages of 18 and 23 should be the idea. But where do you draw that line? And that we're going to have some sort of Kenny Pickett rule, I'm sure, in college football next year that kind of guides this, because here we are again.
I mean, Kenny Pickett can put his stamp all through the college football record book, not only surpassing Dan Marino and Alex Van Pelt and all these Pitt records and what he's done this year, but if he gets a rule change, not every quarterback gets a rule change no matter what your stats are. So Kenny Pickett also responsible for potentially a rule change or for a rule in general, just cementing himself again here. Our ACC Championship post-game show, James Santelli, Mike Asti here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and PSN. Head over to Pittsburgh Sports Now for all our post-game coverage. Again, more celebrating this might be the first time I've ever done any talk show anywhere in which a chat occurs where nobody's debating anybody. This is just all finally ACC Championship, Pitt defense, keep Kenny. You do have some keep Kenny home, Heinz Field. And I also saw some tweets, which was funny because you have Ben Roethlisberger kind of overshadowing Pickett a little bit today.
About that then, because as you mentioned, it is fortuitous that both of these news stories come out at the same time.
Right.
Adam Schefter reporting that Ben Roethlisberger is telling people in his inner circle, no, this is going to be my final year. Right. And then you get the Kenny Pickett game, the Kenny Pickett news slide game. Right. I'll ask you. I'm turning the tables on you.
Okay.
What do you think? If the Steelers pick at, let's say, I don't know, 13 or 14, thereabouts, Kenny Pickett is there. I mean, there's a lot to go through with the draft process, combine, and everything else. But if he is there, Steelers pick him. Should the Steelers pick him?
Well, the Steelers definitely need to go quarterback for me if they have a chance at probably either Pickett or Howe. I mean, there were a lot of people who were saying the Steelers probably would have to take Howe just because Pickett might be gone by when the Steelers would pick. It depends on where the Steelers are picking, if they somehow crawl into a playoff spot or if they miss out in the postseason altogether. I do think, and we had the coverage over at Steelers Now, this is in the best interest of the Steelers for Ben to have this be his last season. It may suck for him that these private conversations, clearly not too private if it's already out there, but yes, that would be a benefit because they do eventually need to move on. Obviously, he's been a Hall of Famer, great legacy as well, but you eventually do need to rebuild. You eventually do need to move on and figure out the quarterback position. It's likely not on the roster. They're going to likely have to go quarterback hunting in the early goings of that draft in the first round. And it's not really a deep class. If Pickett's there, I would say the Steelers should take him just because of him as a quarterback. I can say, and this has actually been said by Dan Marino, who was clearly a great Pitt quarterback, great Central Catholic quarterback. He was passed over by the Steelers. He was passed over by the Steelers, but then he has said in retrospect, these are words out of his mouth. He said in retrospect, he feels it might have been best for him to not be taken by the Steelers because he knows that if he was drafted by the Steelers, His family, his friends would have been at every game, every interception. His friends would have been texting him. People would have been upset. It would have been immense pressure that he has said he thinks it actually was good for him to get out of town because he hadn't been out of town. Now, Pickett's not from Pittsburgh, so he had been out of his hometown by playing in Pitt. But there could be something to be said there. I mean, there is going to be an immense amount of pressure. If the Steelers would take Pickett after this year, it would be out of control. I mean, it almost feels like anything shy of the Hall of Fame would be disappointing for some people. You obviously would have to give it time, and I feel like he is an NFL-ready quarterback. But I've talked to some draft analysts that have actually told me that they feel this is how he's been rated to me by draft analysts. And I'm not going to claim to be a draft analyst here, but that Kenny Pickett is a safe pick, so he is not bustable. He is safe from being bustable, but they do not feel he is a perennial Pro Bowler. So that is someone that you would want to pick, but it also does give you pause because if you agree with that assessment, I'm not saying you or I do, but if somebody would agree with that assessment with the Steelers, if you take a quarterback in the top 15 picks, what you're alluding to, or even in the first round, you got to get a long time. You got to get a decade out of him, and you got to get multiple Pro Bowls out of him, and you got to feel like you can go on postseason runs out of him, or that's not really enough to that draft slot. So it'll be interesting for sure. There's going to be still things he's going to have to do. There's going to be things to impress at a combine, etc. Him coming back certainly got him some money. I think he's an NFL-ready quarterback for sure. I think a lot of him in terms of his mobility now, his arm strength, his accuracy, his team leadership, he has the intangibles. There's everything you would want, but who knows if the Steelers are even going to be there. There could be more pressure. Maybe it's best for him to not have to deal with it. We will see. We will see when that occurs. I do want to ask you here as we round things out. We're talking Pitt likely being in the Peach Bowl now. It is. I do want to ask you two final questions here. Number one, obviously it's likely Peach Bowl. Is there an opponent out there that you would like to see Pitt play? I mean, it's not going to, there's no playoff opportunity. It's likely a Peach Bowl, but whatever the New Year's Six bowl game would be, there are still some sexy teams around there that didn't win their conference or did that aren't going to be in the playoff as well. Anyone off the top of your mind that you think, okay, that would be a cool matchup that would do something to the program to beat that team versus maybe somebody else?
I don't know if it's if you beat that team, it's defining. I just think it'd be fun. Ole Miss and Matt Corral.
That's where my mind was too. Yeah.
And Lane Kiffin, signing the new contract. That should be fun, man. I mean, that was kind of the mindset going into this game too. It was like, Wake Forest, I don't know if it means too much to beat Wake Forest itself, but seems like a fun team, scored a lot of points heading into things, had the quarterback. Same thing with Ole Miss. I mean, you could have two guys that are there on the Heisman stage in New York. You get a whole few weeks of Pat Narduzzi and Lane Kiffin, that kind of stuff. That would be fun. I mean, that's what bowl season should be about. Nothing really matters ultimately in any of this. So you get another Southern team there in the South, a team that would be happy to be there as well. I mean, Ole Miss, they had a big, first 10-win season in a while as well. So they would have a lot of fans there at the Peach Bowl. Obviously, Pitt fans would go down to Atlanta in droves. So that would be fun. I guess Oklahoma State might be in the mix there as well. Not as fun because you did have Oklahoma State playing a home and home a couple of years ago. I think Pitt lost both of those. So not as fun, but that's there. I saw people throw out Michigan State, and you would get the Narduzzi connection there. Right. I don't know how likely that is now for Michigan State with a Peach Bowl appearance, but if they come out with a bowl matchup tomorrow and it's Pitt versus Ole Miss, I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it.
And I was going to bring up Ole Miss just because offense to offense, you have two Heisman candidate quarterbacks. Lane Kiffin, I'm sure all week long is going to talk about how much he loves Kenny Pickett, and that would actually even be good for Kenny Pickett in a way because he didn't have success, but Lane Kiffin's a respected offensive mind. He has been in NFL circles before. He's been an NFL head coach before. If he waxes poetic on Kenny Pickett for a whole week or two, that's going to help Kenny Pickett's draft stock. So that would be cool. There would be points there. That's a losable game, I guess you could say, because Lane Kiffin in a bowl game with an offense is going to go for broke. He might go on fourth every play in the second half, but that would be cool. The only other one I could think of that you didn't mention would maybe be Baylor, because it appears the way things have shook out, Baylor's likely on the outside looking in of the playoff. They did win the Big 12. Speaking of volleyball and the over athletic program, Baylor has quietly become arguably the best athletic program in the entire country with what's going on with the basketball men's title.
Whoa. Okay. A very quick Mike Asti hot take there, man.
Well, this hot take was out there on Twitter, but yeah, it's an argument. It's an argument. You look at the football team, conference champion top 10. So not even a conference champion outside of top 10. This is a conference champion top 10, women's basketball pedigree, volleyball success, going other Olympic sports, and then the men's basketball national title that nobody remembers that did occur during the COVID season. And they're a good team again that could easily be a dark horse Final Four team again. I feel like they can go up against anybody, but we'll leave that be. But Baylor's another team.
This is not the Baylor post Big 12 championship show.
Yeah, we'll leave that be. But that Baylor's just another team that comes to mind. That would be a fun game as well. Separate from that, and then I'll let you go on maybe your close to rant about Pitt volleyball, even though we got that in.
Please.
Actually.
Oh, I've been waiting for it.
We did get that in earlier, though, so I feel like we got that in a little bit.
Shoehorned it in. Shoehorned it in earlier.
You did, but I promised you we were going to get it in anyway, so we will give you that time anyway. The other question that, again, this is about celebrating for Pitt. You as a Pitt fan. Pitt won the ACC, obviously a great positive season for sure. There's no way to take that away. And Wake Forest was a great team all year. This is a 2-10-win team. So beating Wake Forest certainly counts for something. That's another feather on Pitt's cap. However, and I also talked about this in the preview show, so it's not just to you. I'm not trying to pop your balloon at all. You have two teams. We talked about this. Two teams that weren't supposed to be there. They're both 10-win teams. They both had their hiccups. And those hiccups were severe enough. They were eliminated from playoff contention prior to even kickoff of this game. Which, if either one of them had a chance to be in the playoff in this game, it would have elevated the game. Even the Big 12, which is a down conference, there was at least a 30% chance that a winner of that could get in. Or even if Oklahoma State would have won, they would have had a better case than even Baylor with their bad loss earlier in the year. So maybe it was a 60% chance, whatever percentage you want to put on there for Oklahoma State. There was a chance that the winner of that could get into the playoff. The winner of this ACC championship game had a 0% chance. Doesn't matter who beat who, even with Pitt's beatdown, they're not going to get in. You cannot get over the Western Michigan loss. You compound it with Miami. There's no way to get in. You have Clemson, who normally is the team that's there. And there is the fact out there that this is the first time since conference realignment that you have either Florida State or Clemson not winning the ACC. Florida State and then Clemson the last 5-6 plus years had owned the conference. Clemson had really owned the conference since the advent of the college football playoff, and certainly recently, even winning national titles. So you knew that if they're there, you win, and you're getting an ACC representative in the playoff. That wasn't the case this year. So is it good for the conference to have two underdog stories that are rarely there playing for an ACC championship with a 0% chance of the playoff? Or would it be better for the conference overall to have a behemoth elite program like a Clemson that if they win, doesn't matter who they're playing, but if they win, they can actually compete for a national title for the ACC?
Oh, for the conference, it's undeniably better to have a juggernaut that goes and gets you that money from playing in the college football playoff, that gets you the respect from having an elite team like Clemson has been and Dabo has built in Clemson. Unbelievably so for the ACC. It's better to have that money, have that respect, have that prestige. However, as a football fan, just enjoying the moment, it's cool as hell that, this was not Clemson's year. Get lost. This was a time for two schools you absolutely did not expect to win their respective divisions, Pitt and Wake Forest, to be a part of it. Does that translate into more money for the conference? No. Does it translate into more prestige for the conference? Absolutely not. I guess there would have been some people watching because Michigan was just absolutely destroying Iowa, so people would have been turning over. The only other option, as you mentioned before the show, the USC-Cal makeup game that nobody cares about, rightly so. So, people probably turned over at that point to see what was going on with the ACC Championship. So, you get the kind of cool factor of Pitt winning. And And if Pitt makes something of itself over the next couple of years and is consistently,
Sure.
competing for Coastal Division titles, yeah, it may lead to something better for the conference, but no, it's not good for the conference. Do I care? No. To do the Mike Tomlin, we do not care.
Yeah,
I do not care.
I'm sure you don't. I did want to ask though, and I will say I didn't want to cut you off there, but I will say that's interesting. You were emphatic with giving it the no, and I think that is the right answer overall. But going in, it wasn't unanimous. Let's just say there were some that tried to somehow argue that this was better in terms of depth and conference notoriety, and it's better than having one team dominate. And now there's more competitiveness and a storyline for next year. And I heard all that song and dance. So people tried to argue the other side. But yeah, I think in all honesty, you are correct, because getting in major bowl games, getting in the playoff, it does bring in money. And when you're in these conference agreements, you're splitting some cash. And you're splitting a bigger pot when you're in the playoff, when you have two of those big games to play potentially, than if you're not. Even if you're looking at a Peach Bowl or whatever bowl game Wake Forest would get, and certainly other teams are looking at still bowl games. And Wake could be back there next year. There's an argument to be had that with Pickett gone, that Wake is actually more likely to be back there next year, even though they have Clemson to deal with in the division. Obviously, that would make the division tough. And I do think there's something to be said that Clemson played so well down the stretch, and they were in it. They could have got back here until that last week of the season. Pitt might be a little lucky they didn't have to face Clemson in this game. Obviously, Wake's still a great team, but Clemson would have been tougher to beat the second time around than the first. Clemson finally got an offense going they did not have in that first meeting. James Santelli joining me here from KDKA as Pitt wins the ACC. This is our ACC Championship post-game show, but not the only Pitt team to win on the day. Pitt also won on the volleyball court, a big win to say the least over their cross-state rival. They do move on. James, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Being there in the arena with, I would say there was about 2,500 or so folks, and a good contingent of Penn State volleyball fans.
Okay.
Deservedly so. They're close by, and Penn State in women's volleyball has been, the best program of the last 20 or so years. So they've garnered a fan base. I already mentioned how this victory takes the monkey off their back, takes them off the schneid, gives them a sense of relief. What I will now say to, whoever is watching, if you have not
There are some people, by the way, so you enjoy this moment.
If you have not gone and watched the Pitt volleyball team and supported this Pitt volleyball team, now is the time. They're going to put tickets on sale for this coming week for what they call the regionals in volleyball, but it's essentially the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. And it's going to be here in Pittsburgh for the first time. They're going to have the Sweet 16 matchups in the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse and Elite Eight. No matter who wins, the Elite Eight will be at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse. Pitt is going to play Kansas on Thursday night. Kansas, an unseeded team, not in the top 16, but a very hot Kansas team, has beaten some good teams. And the other game will be Purdue versus BYU, two very strong volleyball programs. Winners will play each other in the Elite Eight. I don't have to implore people, because I'm almost certain that these will sell out, the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight games. I don't have to implore people to go and support this team. What I will say is, you should. I mean, I got into this Pitt volleyball program having already been a volleyball fan, but I got into them back in 2018. They started the year something like 16-0, 17-0, got themselves into the top 10. They've gone from a very good program consistently in the top 10 to now stepping into elite program status. They're number 3 seed in the tournament. They have beaten Penn State in the tournament, which they have not done. They have the best chance to make the Final Four than they have in quite some time, going through Kansas and possibly Purdue or BYU, a team they beat at that same venue, the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse, earlier this year. So I will say, if you have the opportunity to go either Thursday night for the Sweet 16 or next Saturday night for the Elite Eight, please do it. If you are a Pitt fan that's watching this, I want you there with me at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse to hopefully celebrate what was kind of unexpected a few years ago. I mean, who would have thought that Pitt would have one of the country's elite volleyball programs. It was not something that was in the cards. So credit to a whole host of folks. Credit to Dan Fisher, the head coach of the Pitt volleyball team. Credit to Heather Like, athletic director. And credit to these ladies who have created an elite program, the co-captains, Kayla Lund and Shanaza Ende, who have done fantastic work to be where they are now. Credit to the transfers who have come in, Serena Gray from Penn State and Lekator Member-Monet from Missouri. They have pushed this team to new heights this season, and they probably would not be here in the Sweet 16 without transferring in. And everybody else involved with this Pitt volleyball program, I mean, in credit to them, they deserve to celebrate this night just as much as the football program does. They really do, because they made a statement tonight. They got off the schneid. They did something that no other Pitt volleyball program has done. And frankly, they should be celebrated. And I'm hoping to see a packed house there Thursday night at the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse to do so. Thank you for giving me the time.
Absolutely. I had to do it. And the volleyball team earned the opportunity for you to have this time as well. We also actually do have some volleyball post-game videos over there at Pittsburgh Sports Live. So we're giving them coverage as well. It's not just here about the Pitt football team, and even a chatter here. The volleyball team is tremendous. I wonder why they don't play all of their games at the Pete. It's probably a rant that James can go on for another day, even though scheduling also that would make that impossible probably.
Yeah, I'll answer that question quickly. I think the men's basketball team is playing Colgate Thursday night, and for whatever reason, the men's basketball team takes precedence. I will say there will probably be more people in the field house Thursday night than there will be in the Pete for men's basketball. Right. But as there should be. You've got a team playing in the Sweet 16 versus a men's basketball team. We won't go into this, but is not having a good year and will not have a good year.
Right.
But it's a night for celebration, not for bemoaning the state of the men's basketball program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there's a scheduling issue too for the regular season. And you do have to give deference to a team that is likely making more revenue for you. At least you thought would be the case. But yeah, for this year, it's not certainly hard to get on one side over the other in terms of supporting a winning volleyball program versus the men's basketball team right now. But yeah, we will not interrupt the celebration to go on that debate on where the volleyball team should be playing. They can celebrate nonetheless, as well as the football team. The football team wins the ACC. The volleyball team moves on. James can enjoy his night and celebrate as this night comes up, James, as he still chugs on his brew there. James, I appreciate the time, and I felt like we're having one of those we're having a COVID Zoom session here. We're just enjoying a moment and letting you celebrate. So I definitely appreciate the time. Definitely enjoy it. Pitt got the victory. So James, I will let you go enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you. Hail to Pitt. Hail to Pitt.
Okay. Absolutely. James Santelli of KDKA. Always great to catch up with him. That show kind of went on a tangent there, admittedly, but this is a night for Pitt fans to celebrate. He's a Pitt fan, and to celebrate more than just the football team, the volleyball team as well. So I did want to give him that time. He is a resident volleyball stan, to say the least, and you can find that over there at his @James Santelli Twitter account, as he admits himself to be a volleyball stan. I believe that's still in his name, his display name there. Nonetheless, Pitt does beat Wake Forest 45-21. Pickett did enough. Pickett had a great moment early on. We can debate the slide or the fake slide, if that should be a rule for another day, but I'm sure some will, and that will continue to rage on and probably create a rule in the offseason, because you had enough people that are important enough that seemingly didn't like it. I really don't like it. I think it screws the defenders, but it didn't affect this game, thank God. So we don't have to hear that. So Pitt won this game nonetheless. Pitt won this game handily, and honestly, Wake can't complain, because this game was not affected by that move, because Wake Forest themselves imploded. Sam Hartman in particular threw some costly picks, 4 of them in this game, and Pitt just handled business. Pitt now the ACC champion, looking like Peach Bowl, maybe an outside shot at the Fiesta Bowl. Either way, New Year's 6, major bowl game, biggest bowl game Pitt's going to have in 15 plus years. Best season Pitt's had in really 40 years, honestly, if you talk about legitimacy, because as we detailed, this a more legitimate year than 09, than 04. Certainly than 2018, etc. Glad the chatters had some fun as well, and they didn't debate themselves. So that was all the celebratory chat we had. Again, Pittsburgh Sports Now, where our post-game coverage is, our game recap, our video reaction here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and PSN, and a lot more coverage throughout the week, onward and upward to that major bowl game for the Pitt Panthers. So Pitt ends up capping off their special season. Pitt is it. In 2021 in the ACC, Pitt wins the Atlantic Coast Conference. After winning the Coastal Division, they win the ACC Conference in the ACC Championship Game with a big win over Clemson, 11th win on the year, as they now look for that explanation point, 12th win in a major bowl game. And we'll then see if they collect any other hardware individually speaking with Kenny Pickett and company. Pitt wins the ACC. Pitt fans, go ahead and enjoy this moment. I can't deny it. Hail to Pitt, I guess, for Pitt fans. Great moment, great season for Pitt. And Pitt gets the job done. There's no more will Pitt this up, in quotes. They don't. They win the ACC. Pitt ends up being it in 2020.